So this recipe, I actually really like it. It really highlights the clarity of the coffee. It's very concise and also very flexible. I built this recipe for the Austrian Brewers Cup, the nationals, but it never made it to the stage because I got sick 2 days before the competition. I spent months with this recipe, working on it, tweaking it for my competition coffee. So first, a bit of context, because this recipe was just not a recipe I really wanted to work with, but it was a recipe for a very specific situation. In the Brewers Cup, you brew 3 brews simultaneously. So your recipe really has to fit that style that you can prepare 3 brews at the same time. So there are some recipes that work better in this format and some work way worse in that format. So usually you don't have very big pouring time windows. So you can't really pour slowly and gently with every coffee bed. Usually you have a time window of 7 to 10 seconds per brew, and then you have to switch. So you're pouring your water amount in this short time window. So this actually eliminates a lot of different recipes because you cannot do very long pours, slow, gentle pours with a lot of water per pour because it just doesn't fit the time window so you can manage your presentation in front of the judges. These other recipes might be very beneficial for a single cup at home when you're brewing, and it would be maybe an even more forgiving recipe with better extraction, more balance, more clarity, more sweetness. But you cannot really use it at the competition. I chose the Time-More Turbo Dripper. This dripper has built-in bypass channels, which allow for a very fast extraction. It's a conical dripper for percolation brewing. And with this fast extraction, I think this really features a clarity-forward extraction. And this fits my style for competitions perfectly. The coffee I was preparing for a competition is this high quality natural Geisha from Costa Rica. I got it from the company El Café. They import coffees from Costa Rica to Austria. And the producer of this coffee is Roberto Mata. He's from the Tarasú region. This coffee is grown at 1,950 meters. And it's a very beautiful, high clarity Geisha with a lot of red fruit characteristics. Competition coffees are usually very rare, and that's why I'm choosing 14 grams of this coffee for this recipe. And I tried to work everything around that. I was flexible. I was also testing more grams and less grams. But for me, I found out 14 grams work really well with this recipe and this coffee. So on the one hand, when you're doing dozens of practice brews, it's way more economical to have these smaller 14 gram doses. But on the other hand, a smaller dose like 14 grams of this coffee in the coffee bed is also beneficial for the blooming phase, which is the most important phase in our whole preparation. The blooming phase is the first pour over the coffee bed, the first contact with water. And the sooner we can make the coffee bed in contact with the water at once, the better, because this leads to a more even extraction. You can imagine when you have a huge coffee bed of 30 grams, for example, it takes a while to soak all of the coffee beans in the blooming water. And this leads to a very uneven extraction because the top of the coffee bed already starts extracting while the bottom of the coffee bed is not even in touch with water yet. With a smaller dose of 14 grams, we kind of increase the probability that everything gets in touch with water at once. These very small and detailed differences I'm explaining here will compound over the time of the brew. So everything in the beginning is very important that everything is even, because later on in the bloom, the impact of certain variables get less important, and the beginning variables of the bloom and of the pouring, of the brewing is way more important as it also affects the end stage. So now let's take a quick look at everything I use for this recipe. I'm having here the Time-More Turbo Dripper. I'm having a Hario Trip Tray to place the dripper on for rinsing the paper filters. I got the Icosa Brew House server, which I'm brewing in for a better sensory experience of this coffee. I'm brewing with the Time-More Black Mirror 3.0 scale, which comes out this year. This one is brand new on the market or will get launched very soon. I'm using the Nucleus needle tool, the Bloom. For the coffee, I'm using the bean jars from Comandante. The filter paper I'm using is the Seabarist B3 filter. For brewing, I got the Timemore Fish Pro X kettle. And the cups I chose for this competition is the Origami Harmony cup in the pink glazing. Now, before brewing this coffee together with you, let me walk you through the outline of this recipe with you just once in theory, and then we do the brew together. I'm using 14 grams of coffee to 200 grams of water. This is a ratio of 1 to 14.3. I'm using water at 93 degrees Celsius with about 100 BPM. And we are doing a 4-pour structure. We're doing 4 pours of 50 grams in each pour. The first pour starts at 0 seconds. When we start the timer, we're doing a pour of 50 grams with 3 circular movements over the coffee bed, then finishing in the center, wetting all coffee grounds at once and evenly. This should take about 7 seconds. Then we're waiting until the timer says 40 seconds. At 40 seconds, we pour another 50 grams with 3 circular movements and finishing in the center. The next pour starts at 1 minute and 10 seconds. Again, 50 grams onto the coffee bed. And the final pour starts at 1 minute and 40 seconds. Again, pouring 50 grams onto the coffee bed in the same pattern. The drawdown should finish at around 2 minutes and 20 seconds, depending on our grind size and the coffee we are using. Now, let's brew the coffee together. So for the water, I'm using the Lotus mineral drops. I'm using 900 grams of water that I put into this kettle directly. For the competition, I would have mixed it in there in the canister. And I'm using 4 drops of magnesium, which is quite high. And I'm using 2 drops of calcium. Then I'm using 2 drops of sodium. And I'm using 4 drops of potassium. So with this, usually I hit about 100 BPM. Today I'm at 95 BPM on average. I'm using the Seabarist B3 papers. I just found out that these papers flow a little bit faster than the original Timemore papers, which leads to a little bit more clarity, and they change the cup, but just a little bit. So for the coffee, I'm grinding up 14 grams of this coffee. I'm putting 2 sprays of water onto the beans so they grind up more efficient and producing less fines, less statics that are then glued to the grinder. And I'm grinding those beans at a grind setting of about 16 on my 078 SSP multipurpose Timemore grinder. This should be around 700 microns, so a medium to coarse grind setting. So now let's rinse the paper filter. Let's make sure it really is glued to the walls. Use a lot of water for rinsing the paper filter if you want precision. When all the water is gone, we can place the brewer onto the server. I'm now dosing exactly 14 grams into the brewer. The scale says 14.1. This is why we get rid of just a little bit of the coffee. Now it says 14.0. Now this is the time when I'm using the needle tool of Nucleus. I'm distributing the coffee grounds evenly. This is very necessary for an efficient blooming phase. It showed to highlight more balance in the cup, more clarity. So I'm really starting in the middle down there, and then I'm working outwards, making an even coffee bed. This also breaks up the clumps in the coffee beds, leading to a more efficient blooming phase. And with the backside of this tool, I will make a hole in the middle of the coffee bed. This reduces air pockets in the coffee bed and also leads to a more efficient blooming phase, and that all of the coffee grounds get wet at once. So I guess now we're ready for the first pour. Let's go. Let's start the timer. And now we're pouring 50 grams in a circular movement onto the coffee bed within 7 seconds. We let this bloom just until 40 seconds on the timer. This blooming phase really unlocks the flavors for the extraction. The real extraction starts now. We're pouring again 50 grams in 3 circular movements onto the coffee bed until we hit 100 grams on our coffee scale. And then we wait again until we hit 1 minute and 10 seconds. We are pouring again 50 grams onto the coffee bed in 3 circular movements, very controlled and gentle. And then we are finishing in the center until we hit 150 grams. And now we wait until 1 minute and 40, and we are pouring the last 50 grams onto the coffee bed. Again, 3 circular movements and finishing in the center with exactly 200 grams on the scales. Now we wait for the drawdown, and the drawdown should finish at around 2 minutes and 20 seconds. These are the last drops coming from the brewer. That's it. And we finish our brew. Directly after brewing, you can swirl the server and evaluate the aroma directly from the server. I swirl at least 5 times to unlock the floral characteristics of this coffee. You can really get the florals like jasmine, white blossom, something like orange blossom maybe, and some red fruits in the aroma. So this coffee really tastes like a lot of red fruit. When it's warm, you will find some cherries and pomegranate. And when it's cooling down, you'll find something like red currant and raspberries in the coffee. So it's full of red fruit. It's a very high clarity brew. It has a lot of balance. It's not over and not under extracted. So you really find the best expression of this coffee with these settings and this recipe. I really like how vibrant the acidity is, but still you get some sweetness and some body in this coffee. So now let's walk you through all of the variables, why I chose certain settings and what effect these variables had on my brew in my testings. The biggest impact variable on your brew is the grind size. When you go coarser or finer, this changes the whole dynamics of your cup. It might unlock new flavors to go coarser or finer. You might also shift the balance to get a more bitter or more sour or more clarity forward brew. But the hard part about grind size is that there are no rules. Aga from Sheep and Raven explained it to me like this. You have no idea when you have a huge particle versus a very fine particle. You have no idea what kind of aspects the water is extracting the first with the big particle and the small particle. So you have to trust your gut. You have to try, fail, and adjust every time again until you hit a certain point where you like the flavors and you feel like I'm extracting all of the good things that I want to extract from this coffee. When you go way too fine, so really off borders, way too fine, you will usually get a very bitter brew. If you go way too coarse, you will usually get a sour or tea-like brew. But like in this middle range, in this certain area where you can adjust, here you will unlock different flavors depending on your grind size. For this coffee, I found that a coarser grind setting is very beneficial because the clarity and the vibrant acidities are so amazing of this coffee. This is something I wanted to show. If I wanted to push it more to the sweeter side with more body and more intensity, I would have gone finer probably, but I didn't. I liked the setting of 16 on my timer grinder, which is around the 700 microns. The next variable to play with after dialing in the grind size is the dosage. It makes a huge impact on dosing up or down a little bit. I usually don't change my recipe from the water side, but you can just use a little bit more coffee or less coffee. Just half a gram or 1 gram of coffee more or less will change the whole brew. If you feel like there are a lot of amazing flavors in there, but they don't really open up, there is something more to experience and they are maybe too compromised, then you could increase the ratio by reducing the dosage. So you could go down with the coffee to 13 grams maybe. On the other hand, what I did with this recipe is reduce the ratio and work with a higher dosage in comparison to the water. So I'm working with a ratio of 1 to 14.3 here to intensify the flavors because I want the judges to experience this coffee very fast, very intense, and really get all the flavors that I got out of it. And with this coffee, I found this ratio to be just more expressive of the vibrancy of this coffee. The third variable you could change, but I usually keep it very constant, is the water temperature. I use 93 degrees water. If you would have a coffee that leans towards bitterness, you should reduce the water temperature usually. But with high quality coffees like these, like very high quality Geisha coffees, they usually need a lot of extraction power because I roasted this coffee very lightly and you need more power to extract all the beautiful flavors. And there are not so much bad flavors in this coffee. So you can really go a bit further and push extraction with temperature. The fourth variable you could adjust would be the paper filter. These different paper filters really change the extraction a lot. I tried to keep it with a kind of slow paper filter. There are fast paper filters from Seabarist where water just falls through. You can watch this in the other video where I did the filter paper testing. But I experienced for geishas, you want some contact time. You need some time to extract these beautiful flavors. And that's why I chose the slower paper of Seabarist. They are one of the highest quality papers on the market for competitions. These are really amazing. And I chose the B3 just for a little bit more contact time so I can extract all the flavors of this coffee. The fifth variable you could change is the pouring structure of this recipe. And I tried a lot with the pouring structure. And when I'm not brewing competition coffees like this Geisha, the pouring structure I'm using is usually 3 pours. I'm doing a double bloom. I'm doing 2 times the 50 grams. And then I'm pouring 100 grams at once. And I'm doing this because some coffees really benefit from less agitation. Less pours are less agitation, and usually this leads to less bitterness, less over extraction, and a more controlled extraction. Actually, the drawdown time doesn't change much if I go to 3 pours instead of 4, but the agitation changes a lot. And this makes extraction a little bit more gentle for some coffees that don't need so much agitation for extracting. And the sixth variable, and usually one of the last variables that I'm changing with these recipes, is the water recipe. For finding the perfect water recipe for this coffee, I tried brewing this coffee with 0 water and then adding the minerals to separate cups and trying how they influence the coffee. This is not a perfect interpretation of these minerals because they usually work together and not separately. But for this testing, I was seeing when is the point where one mineral can really destroy the coffee and where's the minimum amount of this mineral to make the coffee shine a little bit brighter. And this is how I learned that for this coffee, I have to reduce calcium. It really didn't highlight the best of this coffee. I found out that magnesium can be quite high and potassium also benefits the coffee a lot. But sodium and the calcium, I have to be very careful with those in my recipe. Usually competition coffees like these are brewed with 50 BPM to 150 BPM. I know this is a huge range, but within there, usually people brew these competition coffees. I started with a very low BPM style brewing with about 50 BPM, but I increased it to 100 BPM because I learned it benefits the coffee. It just highlights the flavors in a better way. So if you're also working with lotus drops, I can recommend to you, make a brew, split the brew in 4 cups, just add some drops of the different minerals, 1 mineral to each cup, so you can taste the difference of those minerals. If it's not so clear what they do, just increase the mineral count. It will be way too much minerals in one of these cups because they are really concentrated, but it teaches so much about how these minerals change your final cup. So just one more thing I have to say before you go out there and try this recipe. All recipes you will find on YouTube, on Instagram, they always have to be viewed in context, what they were built for. And all of them can work, but don't have to work for your setup. Because this recipe just worked for me here with my setup, with my water, with my coffee, with my grinder on that one specific day. This doesn't mean that it works for every coffee, every setup. So please just take this recipe with the decisions behind them, the variables that I explained, and try to make it your own. Experiment with it, dial it in for you, for your coffee, and also for your taste preference and for your specific need. And then try to understand coffee just a little bit better with this. I believe that you can learn from every recipe, so please don't treat them as a truth, just as a starting point for dialing it in to your setup, to your own needs. So now I'm excited to hear if you tried the recipe and adjusted it to your needs. What did you experience? What did you change? How did you find this recipe for yourself, for your brewer? Put it down in the comments below. And if you haven't seen the competition vlog yet, check out the video of the Brewers Cup competition vlog of my 2026 experience. And the next video coming up will be a tribute to the presentation that never made it to the stage. Don't forget to subscribe and see you guys in the next videos. Bye.